Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host, Aminah Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to Next Gen, where we seek to amplify the voices of young people, particularly change makers across the globe. Today, we have with us one such change maker, Mussab Ali. Mussab is an absolutely phenomenal young person. He is a recent alum from Harvard Law. Congratulations on that feat. I think that makes you super cool in the eyes of brown people, obviously. But in general, that is an amazing feat. He is the former president of the New Jersey Board of Education, and Mussab has recently started a nonprofit organization training young leaders across the country, young activists and organizers like himself. Thank you, Mussab, for being on the show today.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me as well.
Now, Mussab, you are obviously an inspiration to a lot of people in the community. People look to you as someone who has accomplished a lot and who is making a change for the betterment of our community. You are civically engaged, and obviously, that is something that is absolutely essential in our community today. And it's something that a lot of people are starting to realize the importance of. Tell us your story, Mussab. I mean, I listed a lot of your accomplishments. There is a very long list of them, and I can continue to go on, but we want to hear from you. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I mean, alhamdulillah, I feel like I've been very blessed. I think the best way to start is probably think about my time in high school and then leading into college. So I think like most brown kids, the plan was to go to medical school. And so I was studying all the sciences, was taking AP chemistry, AP biology. Even when I got to college, I was actually in college for a double major in biology and economics. And in 2015, so and to me, I mean, it was something that, really shocked me at my core because the community that he was talking about was my community. And we had never had a Muslim elected into any public office. And so I kind of felt like that was a moment for me to step up and do something.
Mussab, you cut off a little bit telling us about what story inspired you. Can you just tell us about that again?
Yeah, so when Trump was running for office, he talked about thousands and thousands of Muslims celebrating on the rooftops of Jersey, New Jersey. And that's where I grew up my whole life. And I think that moment made me feel like I had to do something. And at that time, I wasn't civically engaged at all. Like, I'll tell you, I probably knew the mayor and the president. And that was it. I didn't even know a school board existed until I took the time to research and then decide to run.
And you ran in 2017. You were the youngest Muslim elected in office in the United States at the age of 22 years old. That is absolutely phenomenal. Mussab, what was your journey to get there? And when you did get there as the youngest Muslim represented to office, what were the challenges that you faced in your specific community?
Yeah, so I first ran in 2016 when I was 19 and I lost, and Trump won. So it was like a really, really kind of a bad day, because I went to sleep knowing that I lost and I woke up to know that Trump was the president. And then when he first got in office and he passed the Muslim ban, I think that's when a lot of people in my community were like, okay, like this wasn't just propaganda during the campaign trail. Like this is a real threat to what does it mean to be a Muslim in America. And so in 2017, I decided to run for office again. There was a 1-year seat that opened up. And so I ran against one other person, and we won the election by 68 votes. So it was 9,388 to 9,320. So 0.4% of the vote. So it was very, very close. And at the time, so that was when I was 20 years old. I got elected. And I remember it was really just this moment of I think there was a big moment of sort of shock even in the community, because again, relative to some people who had run, I mean, there had been some older gentlemen in the community who had run for office. They were all probably in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, and so for someone to come in who was 20 years old, sort of a political outsider, to get elected, I think it meant a lot for a lot of people, and also showed that we could have some success, right? So people really start to organize and understand how do we continue to advance our community forward? What are the things that we care about? And And so initially coming in, I thought it was a bit of an uphill battle explaining to people that, I was 20 and I could really make a difference and I cared about what's happening in our schools. But then in 2018, I get reelected. At that point, we set, I think, a state record, second highest votes in a school board race. So that election, I think we got right around 23,000 votes. At that point, we were the incumbents. Like, life was a little easier. But then it started to change, like, my long-term trajectory as well, right? So I was like, okay, like, am I still cut out for this medicine thing? Because at the time, I'm still in class taking organic chemistry, biochemistry, sort of studying. And I realized, like, maybe this isn't the path that I want to go down. So I took a year to go to China on the Schwarzman Scholarship, was in Beijing for 4 months. COVID happened. While that was happening, I was still back and forth doing my board duties. I come back, then I'm like, okay, it's January. This medicine thing isn't going to work anymore. I got to apply to law school. So then I applied to law school, was fortunate enough to get into Harvard. And so I went there for law school. But along the way, I felt like the political thing was always sort of, helping me understand why I was doing what I was doing and sort of always helping us advance the different causes for our community.
Mussab, it's so interesting that when I talk to young people who are in the field of law or journalism or anything aside from STEM, they always tell me I started off in STEM and then I moved to the field that they're in. And your story is very similar to that. How can we move past that as a community? And I know that's a very big question and maybe you don't have all the answers, but how can we inspire a generation of young people that go into fields that are equally as important, if not more important? And I think that's a controversial thing to say on Muslim Network TV, but a community that needs journalists, that needs lawyers, that needs people in the media to be telling a different narrative. How can we get our community to be more accepting of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to how do we convince people that these are stable careers, and also understanding the importance of rule of law in America. So, I mean, I know for me growing up, the reason my parents never thought of law as like a particularly compelling profession is within Pakistan, like, attorneys aren't necessarily seen as the brightest students. And so this idea that in America there is a real system of the rule of law, that there is a lot of influence that lawyers can have in terms of our rights and how society is governed. I think it really was changed as I grew up, because I sort of understood the way that we could make a difference. And I think you just need more and more people who sort of are those role models, sort of blazing that trail for more people to look and say, you know what, that's also an acceptable career for my children. I mean, I think we're all sort of guilty of having those Majid aunties and uncles who, compare us to the other kids in our community, right? Like, such and such is a doctor, this person's going to whatever sort of school. And I think the thing is, we haven't seen lawyers at that level of success yet. And I think once we start to have those sort of people, we will have those comparisons. And I think those comparisons actually fuel more and more people to say that is an acceptable career path.
It's honestly a very interesting perspective that if we see success and if this generation of young people who kind of deferred from a lot of their peers and going into these fields have success, then that will inspire the next generation of young people, of young Muslims, to also go into those fields. Mussab, we will be right back after our short break. You're all watching us on Galaxy 19 satellites, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and MuslimNetwork.tv. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Next Gen. I'm here with Mussab Ali, founder of Ali Leadership Institute and former Harvard Law student. He just graduated. We didn't really talk about that at all. Mussab, talk about your journey as a Muslim going into Harvard, not even knowing that you wanted to do law until you applied to law school. How was that like? How was the environment there and the community that perhaps you were able to build at Harvard Law?
Sorry about that, guys.
Don't worry. Were you able to hear the question?
Didn't hear the question.
Don't worry about it. Mussab, we didn't address your leadership, your community building at Harvard Law. As a young Muslim, how is the environment there? How is it like going into Harvard Law, not even knowing that you wanted to apply to law school until you did apply? How was that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think Harvard has a really big, really good cachet in terms of street cred. I mean, you look at Legally Blonde, you think about Suits. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Suits was probably a big part of the reason that I applied to Harvard Law School. And I think it's one of the schools that stands out as like, no matter what you want to do, having a Harvard Law degree can be really helpful, which is like, most people who are at Harvard Law within 15 years are not practicing law, which I think is a testament to what kind of doors that degree really opens. And I was very fortunate. I mean, I think my first year was remote, and so I really couldn't be as integrated in my community. But at the same time, I was, serving as the board president in Jersey City, and so that kept my hands full. And then I was fortunate enough when I got back to campus my second year to be elected the student body president. And I think a lot of that was trying to navigate and figure out like how do you rebuild community, which I think people were trying to figure out all over the country, right? Post pandemic, people really just wanted to be social and really wanted to have spaces where they could interact with one another. And that was a lot of what we tried to build.
Recently, you also started Ali Leadership Institute, and these type of institutes are so important in our community, where not only have you done some good work, I mean, you're civically engaged, you are accomplished, but then using that to inspire other young people, to inspire and train young people to become activists, to become organizers, and build community in that way. How is Ali Leadership Institute founded, and how is it going right now?
So this was actually a joint project between me and my sister. We started about 5 years ago. And the precipice was, this is 2018. I had just been elected, and I realized that there were very few young people in politics, right? I mean, this was, I think, something still true to this day, but even much more so, I think, in 2017, 2018. And so we basically said, okay, how do we get more young people to care? And not necessarily say like run for office, but like really be aware of what's going on. And so we sort of set up this program where we train young people. Like we have a curriculum where we teach them about civics, media training, fundraising, running for office, all those sort of things, and sort of launched it.
What are your goals with Ali Leadership in the future? Where do you hope to take this initiative?
Honestly, I think in the dream world, I think like, trying to train young people all across the country to be more and more civically engaged and understanding the power that they have. The biggest thing that I always try to teach my students is that, when you're a young person, you tend to think you're disenfranchised because you don't necessarily have access to money, but you have a lot of access to other cohort members who have a lot of free time and are like usually like-minded. And so if you're able to leverage that network that you have, you can be extremely, extremely powerful in having your views presented at a mass scale.
So we have the website in front of us. Can you just walk us through how young people who want to get involved in Ali Leadership can do that?
So I don't think our applications are open right now, but on your top right next to give, there's an apply now button. And traditionally people can just apply. There's like a form that people can fill out. If you can click on cohorts, you can see that I think at this point we're at 50-ish students that we've gone through. So this is 2023. And if you scroll down, you can see this was our gala that happened for the 2022 cohort. So we've been very, very fortunate to have this kind of stuff happen. So one of the things that they've been working on this year is they wanted to do an initiative around getting 16-year-olds the right to vote. And so this is a completely like student-led initiative. Like students were leading it the entire way. And we were able to get coverage on Pix 11. We were able to get some coverage like on the radio, on local radio. NJ.com covered it. Hudson County View covered it. Our local newspapers. And so it's really just been about empowering younger people to see that they really have a way to change society around them. And I think it's really important, especially with in light of all the things that are happening around the world today.
And with Ali leadership, how have young people been able to benefit? What is the feedback that you hear, because you've been doing it for 5 years? Do young people get involved into political office or any other type of way that they can be engaged in their communities?
Yeah, so every year they come up with a project that they actually have to implement in their communities. So I'll give an example from last year. We had a group that was formed. They called it Pages for Progress. And essentially what they did is they collected a bunch of books and created a literacy program for people in the local prison. Because what they found was people who were under a third grade reading level had like a 60% higher chance of going back into prison. And so they collected these books. They actually started this program in the schools, and it was something that actually got them recognition, not just in the city, but around the county, of people being very, happy with the work that they've done. We've also had students who have, gone on to Columbia, Princeton, UPenn, and all of my alumni who come back always tell me that even whatever they're pursuing. So one, for instance, doing computer science, he mentioned he wanted to have a minor in public policy because of how important he realized it was to be connected with his community.
Mussab, it is so inspiring to see the work that you are doing and the work that you are facilitating through Ali Leadership Initiative. Thank you, Mussab Ali, for being on our show today. We have to have you back to talk about law, perhaps for young people who want to go into law specifically. But it is so, so inspirational to me and to other organizers and activists to know that we have a community and we find solace in those young people who are doing this phenomenal work. Thank you so much, Mussab.
Thank you so much for having me, Aminah.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in to Next Gen. We stream on Tuesdays on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Galaxy 19 satellites, and MuslimNetwork.tv. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll be back next week on Next Gen. Assalamu alaikum.